Hi everyone, how are you all doing? I hope you're taking care of yourself, connecting with community, even just an online one like this channel where we can all enjoy some calm, cozy, crafty vibes. So, some backstory for this video, if you're new here or if my videos just exit your brain the minute you're done watching, which totally fair. About 2 months ago, I cleaned out my entire closet and sorted a whole bunch of pieces into a mend/upcycle/DIY pile. And then about 1 month ago, I tackled a huge portion of that pile. And now in this video, I have made it my mission to finish it, the entire DIY pile. And I also hope to cultivate some sustainable slow fashion inspo, some DIY inspo, and some fun and creativity along the way. So let's get into it. Okay, it's day one, and I'm actually starting with something I just thrifted with a plan to flip it. Not really helping me minimize my to-do list, but it's fine. It's just this plain black t-shirt, and I want to do that thing where you like cut off the neckline and cut the sleeves and crop the bottom and turn it into more of like a cute top. Easy. I gotta say, this DIY really brought me back to middle and early high school. Let me know if any of y'all were as addicted to cutting up every t-shirt you owned in 2011 as I was, but this was just so fun and nostalgic. It brought me back in a good way. Of course, here I'm using a rotary cutter and cutting mat just because I have them, but back then it was scissors and that works just as well. Also, I did somehow fail to record the part where I actually cut the neckline, but I just cut directly around the band because it stretches out a lot. Here's the old collar and the edges of the sleeves. Okay, t-shirt's done, looking very slayful. Next project, this skirt, whose waistband is absolutely holding on for dear life. This actually used to be a dress, and this was a DIY thrift flip turning it into a skirt, and it was always kind of bad, but now it's literally falling apart. And I have not really been wearing this as much since the waistband has started falling apart. Incredibly, I thrifted these pajamas a while ago. I used most of the pajamas for a thrift flip, but this is my remaining fabric. It's too short to wear as a top anyway. And look how incredibly similar these fabrics are. And the weight and feel is also basically the same. Honestly, I can't believe I didn't think of this sooner, but I'm gonna use the bottom half of this shirt to make a waistband to go with this skirt. My first step here was just to fully cut off the old waistband. It was so gnarly, it wasn't really worth saving at this point, although I did salvage the elastic because I am kind of a DIY supplies pack rat. Then I cut off the bottom of the pajama remains, and it was already the perfect waistband size to fit the fabric. As you can see here, you can already see the vision. Then I cut some elastic to fit my waist, which will be encased in the waistband, and of course this fabric waistband is bigger than the elastic and bigger than my actual waist because it needs to stretch out to get the skirt on and off. You know how elastic waistbands work, you don't need me to explain it to you. Finally, to put it all together, I just secured the open, unfolded waistband to the skirt so it's sticking out with the wrong side of the fabric visible, and then just folded it down to encase the elastic inside of it, so now the right side of the fabric is visible. Then I just sewed it folded down like that with the raw hems tucked inside. This whole thing was actually kind of surprisingly easy for something I've put off for literal years, and even if I don't stumble across matching fabric, if I ever have to do this again, I also love the idea of potentially using a contrasting fabric for something like this, especially if I also added patches or other details of that contrasting fabric to the rest of the skirt or pants or whatever it is. This really got my gears turning, it got my creative juices flowing. I couldn't help but plot and scheme even more potential DIY projects after doing this. If you, like me, are looking to further explore and develop your creative skills, may I also suggest this video's sponsor, Skillshare? Honestly, while working on the projects in this video, I realized that while my impulse is to just try to figure everything out myself as I go, learning from a sewing expert would probably make things a lot easier for me. And now that I found the Sew Custom Clothing from Scratch learning path on Skillshare, I am so excited to actually learn so many key sewing skills in detail from a pro. If you're not familiar, Skillshare has thousands of individual classes across so many topics, but they also have curated learning paths with collections of classes that help you better develop a skill over multiple classes with multiple projects. This learning path that I'm so excited about features 5 different classes teaching different sewing and design skills, all taught by sewing
host and pattern maker Robin Burgess. Even if you're not into sewing, Skillshare is the largest online community for creatives with classes led by industry experts across film, illustration, design, freelance productivity, and so many more topics. I found it to be just a great tool for any creative goal. And the first 500 people to use my link in the description will receive a 1-month free trial. So I highly recommend giving it a try. You got nothing to lose and so much to be gained. All right, it's a little later in the day. I finished my skirt. I'm feeling good about it. And now I want to start tackling the biggest bulk multi-item project of this video, which is adding lining to all of my homemade dresses. I have 5 dresses that I sewed myself, and the problem is almost all of them have had the hems start to roll up or fray or other sort of rolling up and fraying internally. So I want to add lining to all of them. And I might not document every step of every dress because that sounds like it would be a lot and also boring. But I have already begun by ironing all of the wrinkled up, messed up parts, and I think adding a lining will keep those things smoother when they go through the wash. I don't know, I've never actually done this before, so I might fail miserably, but isn't that the entertainment value of watching this video? For my lining fabric, I have thrifted an old bed sheet. This was $4 or $5. I guess I'm just gonna try to start cutting out pieces that align with the dresses. I don't really know exactly how I'm gonna do this, but you'll find out as you watch.
Okay, so as I described, I started measuring the dresses and cutting out lining pieces to match and align with them, but then I realized pretty quickly that actually a lot of these dresses don't really need a full lining. And yes, the way I realized this was by finishing an entire lining and then realizing it wasn't working. In the case of that dress, the lining actually made it a little too thick and heavy, and part of what I loved about the dress is that it was light and flowy for summertime, and I think that is true of many of these dresses. So I realized what most of them really need is just thicker, sturdier seams and hems. So I still included some lining on portions of the dresses, but for a lot of areas that needed reinforcement, I also used zigzag stitches to prevent fraying, added extra rows of straight stitches to secure like straps and ties and things. And I also ended up basically doing a version of facing on a lot of them, although I'm not totally sure what qualifies as facing and what doesn't, but essentially it was just adding a thick strip along some of the hemlines to make them more sturdy and contain any raw or frayed edges. I think that's pretty much just what facing is, right? I might be missing something. I don't know. Oh, in the midst of all this dress work, I also decided to turn this cardigan with sleeves that are too tight and also stained into a vest without problem sleeves. This was on a different day, sort of partway through working on the dresses. Apologies for the terrible footage. I kind of spontaneously decided to do this late at night, but as you can see, I just cut off the sleeves and then hemmed them.
Hi everyone, I'm back. It's been about a week now. I kind of took a little break and I have now finally gotten back to sewing today. But I do think I'm making progress. 2 of the dresses at least are done, I think. And I've got 2 currently in progress and then 1 more left to do. Just wanted to check back in, say hello, let you know where we're at. So let's get back to it.
Working on these DIYs, most of which were improvements on my own old DIY projects, really made me realize how much the role of DIY, and specifically sewing and altering clothing, in my life has changed over the years. I feel like when I first started trying to sew, it was all about just going for it, figuring it out, and not trying to be perfect. I was very much in the camp of like, doing it the easiest, simplest, least intimidating way possible. And honestly, I don't regret that at all. I think that was a great attitude to get started and just have fun and be creative, because if I had been worried about doing things perfectly, I think I would have gotten too discouraged before I could even really get started. But all that said, I've realized that I'm sort of at a stage now where I'm evolving past that. I'm ready to actually learn and try more complex, technically correct sewing. And that feels kind of great. It's cool to realize that through tons of practice and experimenting and trial and error, I've naturally picked up so much knowledge and experience. When I first started trying to sew years ago, I never would have even considered lining a garment or adding facing or bias tape or any of the things I'm starting to try out now. I didn't even know what any of those things were. which is part of why all these dresses were lacking a little structural integrity. I'm just feeling proud of myself for how far I've come, and I hope this goes to show you all that you do not need any formal training or expertise to get started with DIYing your clothing and to grow and improve at it. You can start with things like cutting up a t-shirt and slowly work your way up to more detailed projects over time. I also realize my whole setup here is still quite amateur and I still make tons of mistakes, and I understand that the projects I did here are still quite rudimentary and flawed by professional standards, but that's all part of the process. Don't be scared to try those rudimentary flawed starter projects, because those starter projects are the first step to better projects.
Good morning. We finished 2 more dresses. I wasn't working all the way through the night, don't worry. That's just a little movie magic. I'm feeling quite pleased with my work so far, but now I do have to move on to the last dress, which is the one that really actually needs like a full complete lining, and that is the one I'm the most nervous about. I'm a little scared it's gonna end up being a lot harder and take a lot longer than I'm hoping, but there's only one way to find out.
Some fun lore on this particular dress that only the most long-standing OG Beep World citizens will know is that I actually made this whole dress just for one particular video over 2 years ago. The video was how to dress like a Minju Kim model. Minju Kim is one of my favorite designers, and this dress was specifically inspired by some dresses in her collections Pluto 999 and La Casa Azul. That video was truly so fun to make. I did one about Simone Russia too that I also loved, and then I never continued the series because those videos just take a lot of time and research and I always put them off. I truly always intended to do more, and it makes me so sad that the last one was over 2 years ago. So if you would like to see more installments, please let me know in the comments, because it was a lot of work, but I would love to bring it back. Oh, and if you're wondering, this lining didn't turn out perfectly, but it went pretty much how I expected, so there were no terrible surprise challenges along the way.
All right, y'all. We did it. Honestly, I cannot believe some of these are actually finally done, and I can finally put them to use again instead of just ignoring them every time I go to get dressed, because I know they're gonna keep falling apart in the wash. So let me show you the final reveals.
First up, our cut black t-shirt. This is so fun. Such a simple, easy way to give a top a totally different look. Especially for me, I have so many regular high cut t-shirts. That's sort of my typical silhouette, so I definitely wouldn't do this to all my t-shirts, but I just love the variation this adds to my wardrobe, while still being just as comfy as a regular t-shirt. Second, this skirt waistband. I am astounded at how much better this feels to wear. I mean, of course, it also looks way better. I am very pleased with the finish. It looks so much sturdier and more polished. But even more than that, it feels so much better to wear. I mean, duh, who would have thought? But it's just incredible. It's not falling down, it's not rolling up, it's staying solidly in place, and it just feels so comfy and sturdy and great. 10 out of 10 on this one. Next up, the cardigan turned vest. This was honestly the sleeper hit of this whole video to me, because it was kind of just a random side project, but I love it. This is something I literally never wore before because the fitted sleeves made it too hard to layer, and now I already have so many new ways I want to wear it. This was actually a suggestion some of you made in the comments on that closet cleanout video I referenced earlier, and I am so glad I listened. Thank you so much for that suggestion. What a great idea. I can't wait to wear this. Now, finally, we have the dresses. These mostly look virtually the same when they're on my body being worn, but the new insides make them so much more wearable for me, and really, when we get down to it, so much more washable for me. All 5 of these had issues with rolling hems, fraying seams, and just general inability to put them in the wash without them coming out in worse condition. And if I can't wash something, I'm never going to wear it. So I think these fixes will be pretty game-changing for me. Truthfully, they're not perfect, and a lot of these would have worked better if I had implemented them when I first made the dresses, but like I said earlier, it's all been part of the learning process. I still think they're going to make a huge difference, and next time I make a dress, I will definitely keep everything I learned here in mind. Overall, I'm just really proud I managed to find solutions for the issues I was having with these garments and prolong their lives in my closet. They are a little out of season for the weather now, but I might still have a homemade dress renaissance soon. Who knows?
Thank you so much for joining me on this crafting journey. I hope you enjoyed and maybe got some inspiration, or at the very least some good cozy vibes. I'd love to hear about your DIY and mending projects in the comments. And also, if you ever recreate any of my DIYs from this video or any video, feel free to tag me or send me a picture on Instagram because I would love to see. And if you do, leave a comment, watch another video, and subscribe. I heard you'll do your next DIY project correctly the first time and you won't have to go back and fix it 2 years later just so you can put it in the washing machine.